Thank you for listening to this PodcastOne production. Available on Apple Podcasts and PodcastOne.
Let's give it up for Geico for supporting the Steve Austin Show for all these years. In just 15 minutes, you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Geico has been offering great rates and great service for over 75 years. And anytime you need help, you can speak to one of their trained specialists 24/7. Go to geico.com and start saving cash. Extra money in your pocket? It may just be the most rewarding thing you do today.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to Steve Austin Show. I'm coming to you from the Broken Skull Ranch out here in northern Nevada. I'm out here in my shop with my laptop computer and Moolah and Callie at my feet on the rug, taking a little cat nap. Well, they would be offended if I said that, taking a nap. I'll tell you what, I got an interesting podcast for you today. I was originally going to podcast about the journey to King of the Ring 1996, where I created two catchphrases which would define my career forevermore. Austin 316 says, I just whipped your ass, and that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so. As I kept looking and researching my opponents, I kept going back to Marc Mero. And Marc Mero, in the first match at King of the Ring before I wrestled Jake, kicked me in the mouth, sending me to the hospital. Hey, man, when I came out of that ambulance, Doc Hendricks, Michael Hayes, told me that Jake Roberts had cut a religious-based promo on me, therefore inspiring me to come up with the promo Austin 316 based off of John 316. But I never would have come up with that promo had I not been kicked in the mouth. And I kept going back to Marc Mero. And I started researching Marc Mero. And I realized what an interesting life this guy has lived and what an interesting career he's had. And I called Diamond Dallas Page and said, well, what's Marc up to these days? Because I had heard he'd been going around talking to kids, talking to people in prisons, talking to people all over the world, and talking to them about the choices they make in their life and how it affects them, and changing the lives of thousands and thousands of people. And he's been extremely successful. I think he's the number one presenter in schools today as far as talking with kids about current issues and making the proper choices. So, hell, man, I kept going back to Marc Mero, so I said, why don't I just call Marc Mero on Skype and have a podcast with him rather than talking about Austin 316 and because Stone Cold said so. So I said, that's exactly what I'll do. Started researching Marc and didn't realize what a stud athlete this guy was coming out of high school. Hell of a damn hockey player, turned into a great football player in his senior year, was a 4-time Golden Gloves boxing champion, and then was going to turn pro after the Olympics were boycotted, and then busted his nose during an inadvertent headbutt by his sparring partner. He was going to take a year off, heal his beak up, and make a comeback and turn pro. But Marc Mero got sidetracked with drugs and alcohol and turned into a drug addict. He's going to make a comeback in a year and turn pro. 1 year turned into 4, turned into 6, turned into 10. Marc's partying one night in 1990, looks up at the TV, sees pro wrestling, WCW, the show at 6:05 on TBS, and had a revelation. Instead of being a pro boxer, well, he done crapped away that dream by partying so much and being away for 10 years. He says, I'm going to be a pro wrestler. Goes down, trains with the Malenkos, starts as an enhancement guy down in WCW. The one and only American Dream Dusty Rhodes comes up with the Johnny B. Bad gimmick, and the rest is going to be on the podcast, is history. I met Marc Mero way back in the WCW days. I guess I'd got there maybe a little bit before him because I was the 1990 Rookie of the Year. We damn near got there about the same time. But I remember him getting lit up as Johnny B. Bad and having a hell of a run with that character. And then, I finally got fired, left for WWF. Then here comes Marc Mero and soon to be Sable up to WWF. And so, man, we go back and we live those days and we talk about his childhood coming up and the things that he got into, doing drugs, selling drugs, shipping drugs, all kinds of stuff. Man, what a life this guy's had. And then all of the losses that he had in his life. And if you get on YouTube, there's two videos that I want you to watch. Marc Mero's Emotional Mother's Day Story was put together by DDP Yoga, and Steve Yu put that video together. And it's a 5-minute video of one of his speeches that he gave at a church. And again, Mark goes to churches, high schools, wherever, prisons, and delivers these messages. And there's also a 1-hour video that basically in 56 minutes, he encapsulates his entire life. And that comes from the River Run Church. In the podcast, I keep calling it Riverview, but it's River Run Church. And you need to check that out on YouTube, because you talk about a hell of a story. It covers his whole story from start until now, and all of the losses. Hell, basically his entire family. What a fascinating, heartbreaking, tear-jerking story. I couldn't believe it. So Marc Mero and I cover all of these subjects, but we go into some different questions as well, and talking about our careers and talking about his run when he got to WWF as the Wildman Marc Mero, and never been able to really settle into that gimmick, coming back as Marvelous Marc Mero, and then leaving the company and to go on and do what he's doing now. So I hope you enjoy this podcast, because, man, like I said, I've always gotten along with Mark. We ran in different circles, but we've always been, friends, or friendly with each other and respected each other. It's good to catch up to him 20 years ago, and I hope you enjoy his story. My Skype connection at certain times was not the strongest. There might be just a tad bit of discombobulation. Sean, my producer, will work hard to patch that up and make it seamless. But enjoy this podcast today, and check out the message that Marc Mero has to give. And watch these two videos on YouTube, the River Run Church testimony, or presentation rather, and Marc Mero's Emotional Mother's Day Story. The story, I won't tell you about what it's about. You watch it, and then send me an email at questions@steveaustonshow.com. Enjoy the podcast. I did. It's that time of year again to raise some hell and stomp a mud hole in your opponents with WWE 2K20. Available now for Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC. This year's game is packed with some incredible features, such as the 2K Showcase, where you can relive the groundbreaking journey of the Four Horsewomen and the Women's Evolution, from their start in NXT to 2019, when women headlined WrestleMania for the first time in history. A brand new My Career, where for the first time in the WWE 2K series, you can play as both female and male characters. Unlock WWE Legends, original characters, and unique environments as you make your way from the indies to the WWE Hall of Fame. And, of course, the WWE 2K20 roster this year is loaded with over 180 of your favorite WWE superstars, legends, Hall of Famers, and NXT superstars. Play as the WWE superstars of today, such as AJ Styles, Roman Reigns, Kofi Kingston, and Kevin Owens, as well as the legendary Andre the Giant, Bret Hart, Goldberg, and the toughest SOB in the business, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Looking for the real deal? Get over 35% in savings with the WWE 2K20 Deluxe Edition. With the Deluxe Edition, you'll get a copy of WWE 2K20, all of the WWE 2K20 originals, including the pre-order bonus pack Bump in the Night featuring The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, the SmackDown 20th Anniversary Edition digital content featuring Hulk Hogan, Chyna, and the Rock and Sock Connection with Mankind and The Rock, the WWE 2K20 Accelerator, and the WWE 2K20 My Player Kickstart. WWE 2K20, available now for Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and PC. Get your copy today at www.2k.com. WWE 2K20, step inside.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
What about matches, man? You're the best at just winging it, man.
Oh, man, you talk about winging it. I'm sitting here talking with my guest today, Marc Mero, with a hell of a story. Growing up in Buffalo, New York, getting into a career in professional wrestling, and man, yeah, a rough childhood, and now inspiring people to do great things. God dang, Mark, it is so good to see you. It's been a long time.
Stone Cold was 20 years, man. I mean, one of the guys I wrestled probably more than almost anybody else. I think it was you, DDP, and I think Triple H are the three guys I wrestled more than anybody.
And I told people on the opening show that I was originally, I was thinking about just doing a podcast about how Austin 316 was born. And Austin 316 would have never been born if you had not kicked me in the mouth. And then I started researching and looking back at everything. And I was like, Marc Mero has had a very interesting life. Marc Mero is responsible for Austin 316, and now Marc Mero is doing great things for kids all over the United States. So I said, you know what? I think it'd be better to do a podcast with Marc Mero. So,
well, what? I've been thinking about it too, Steve. And, I know you made a couple $100 million off that Austin 316. I've never seen any royalty from that. What's going on, man?
Hey, let's go back, because you were kind of obsessed with money there for a while, because you were obsessed with a black Cadillac. You were obsessed with a big house, because you wanted to be rich, because you came up so poor in Buffalo, New York. And you had a rough childhood. You had a very poor family. Your parents split up when you were 8 years old, and you turned out to be a stud athlete. But tell me about just a little bit about coming up, and because your life story is something else.
Well, Steve, when my parents got divorced when I was 8 years old, we had to move to one of the worst drug and gang infested neighborhoods on the west side of Buffalo, New York. And it was in that place that my life was just totally turned upside down. There were so many gangs in the neighborhood. It was very dangerous to live there. And we were kind of the minority in the school. And it was a really tough upbringing. But, Steve, I had this little book that I wrote my dreams and goals into. And this was the craziest thing that happened in my life, was that when I was a kid, of course, as a kid, you dream of having stuff, having material. It's mostly materialistic things, So I'd write things down like, I want a black Cadillac. I want a speedboat. I want to get my mom a house. All these different things I would write down. And I still have that book. I carry it everywhere I go. And I let people see this, because I want people to know that, man, dreams and goals are a lot closer than we think they are, But it's about taking action towards dreams and goals in life, but never knowing that I would, always wanting to accomplish these things. And I wrote down I want to be a millionaire too, and things like that, So they were all materialistic things, because I always thought that money and fame would make me happy. As a kid, you see, we're led to believe, you see these rich people on TV, and you think, oh my gosh, the key to happiness is money and fame. So growing up, I wanted that, and I wrote those dreams and goals into action. But I became very successful in sports, especially hockey. Hockey was my first love, and I made junior hockey. I was like only 15 years old making junior hockey. I played for the Syracuse Stars, and then of course I got kicked out of school for missing so much, getting into fights and things like that. And I just toured with the hockey team. But to go back to school, I had to make an agreement with the school that I would play high school hockey, and I had to play other sports. So I chose football. Never played football in my life, Steve. Went on to coach with the Minnesota Vikings as a defensive coordinator. And of course, UCF was one of the top coaches there. But he was our high school football coach, and we actually won the state title with him as our coach. And I went on to win first team all county honors as a defensive end. I had some of the most sacks ever in a season. And my career really took off. But then I went into boxing. And boxing was something that I just took to and became very successful in boxing. I ended up winning the state title 4 times in New York. And it was eventually where I made the USA boxing team. I moved to Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I trained at the U.S. Olympic Training Center. And it was there that I realized I was one of the best fighters in the whole country at that time. It was 1981. Now, I remember the Olympics were boycotted in 1980. So I didn't want to wait 3 more years and hope to make the Olympic team. So I decided to turn professional in boxing. I had my first professional boxing match scheduled in New York, my hometown. And Steve, I got to tell you, I never trained harder for anything in my entire life. Every day I ran more miles. I did more wind sprints. I'm out sparring, hit the heavy bag. I did everything necessary. 2 weeks before my first professional boxing match, I had my nose shattered in a sparring accident. And it was at that time, I remember I had to go to the hospital, and they had to go in for surgery. So they wheeled me down the hall for my surgery, and my mother was with me. My mom, she's holding my hand the whole time. And she said to me, she goes, Mark, don't worry. You're going to come back in 1 year. You're going to be champ of the world. And I remember thinking to myself, the greatest gift my mother ever gave me she believed in me, man. She empowered me to believe in myself. Well, anyways, the surgery went great. And after the surgery was over, I remember thinking, I'm going to come back in 1 year and I'm going to be champ of the world. And then I started hanging out with the wrong people, Steve. I tell you, we become who we surround ourselves with. You know, I tell students all the time, your friends like elevators. They either take you up or they take you down. You show me your friends, I'll show you your damn future.
I believe in that.
And so, and it was that time I started really getting into some drugs, Steve. I mean, cocaine, I remember the first time I got turned on to cocaine, I thought it was the most amazing thing that ever happened to me. I mean, it's like this euphoria comes over your body, man. You feel invincible. You love everybody, man. And I'm thinking, this can't be that bad of a drug. Well, that drug took me down, Steve, big time. I remember keep thinking I'm coming back in 1 year, I'm going to be champ of the world. 1 year turned into 2 years. 2 years turned into 4 years. 4 years turned into 10 years of my life of drug addiction. And I remember everything I dreamt about as a little boy, you know, the big black Cadillac, the millionaire, the buying my mama a house, all those dreams, I threw them away because of who I chose to surround myself with. And that's when my life took a dive. And for so many years.
But would you consider yourself, were you an addict or were you just in party mode with a bunch of your buddies?
Well, Steve, you know, as I look back now, I mean, there's days I'd go day after day. You know, when you look at what is really an addict, a guy who does it all the time. I mean, you look at it and say, oh, I just like to party with my buddies. But when it's taking away your livelihood and you find yourself now dealing drugs to keep up with your addiction, stealing or doing whatever it could to get your drug of choice, you know, or making deals or I mean, I was bringing stuff to pawn shop, you know, to get a fix, you know, so it was that bad in my life.
When you start dealing, what do you do to start dealing? Because you got no background in it. You just start flipping stuff and.
Oh man. Well, I got hooked up with I guess the right people in that business, you know, and we started going down to Miami, and we would meet the Colombians at a hotel in Miami. We would start bringing kilos back, and we started flying them from Cocoa Beach, Florida. There was an airport in Melbourne. We'd use that airport. We'd fly them to New York, and we distributed it up there, and it became very lucrative. And then what happened, Steve, was my mom was getting, this is a story, I don't think I've ever shared this story, but I'm going to share it today with you. My mom just got engaged. She was getting married. Finally, my mom's whole life was turned on. She met the nicest guy. And she said, well, can you fly in and meet? His name was Chuck. And I said, sure. Well, I thought, you know what, since I'm flying to New York, let me bring a bunch of kilos with me, you know? So what we did is we used to carry them in our boots back then. The security wasn't very big at airports back in the late 80s. But this time I decided to send it Federal Express. I traveled down to my mother's place. I meet the guy for the first time, shake his hand and give him a big hug. And I go downstairs in the basement where my old room used to be, and I hear the SWAT team kick in the doors. They kicked in every door, the windows. There was cops all over our lawn. It was horrible. And my mother and her new husband are on the ground, handcuffed with the guns to their heads. And they're yelling at him, where is he? Where is he? And my mom was just scared to death, you know. And my little brother, who eventually passed on, he was only, you know, he died at 21, but he was just a little kid back then. And they had him on the floor too. And next thing you know, they come down the basement, they find me, they handcuff me, Steve, put me in the back of the cop car. And I'm sitting in the back of that cop car just thinking, my whole life is over, man. Back then, they get really stiff penalties for cocaine. But at that point, I thought they had all the kilos. But lo and behold, the guy I sent them to already got rid of them. So they didn't have anything. And here I am thinking, I'm going away to jail for the rest of my life. And I was even praying in the car. I even prayed with the police officer in the front of the car. I said, hey, man, you want to just say a prayer with me, man? And so anyways, this is the craziest thing. So next thing I know, the SWAT team comes out of the house. And the sheriff department, the local police, everybody was involved. They brought me out of the car. They unhandcuffed me now. And they go, let him go. We have nothing on him. And I was like, thank you, Lord. But what do, Steve? We go and find our buddies. That night, we partied all night long, right back at it, man. Didn't learn one thing from that, you know, and it just escalated year after year after year, man.
God dang, it just sounds so easy to get caught up in a grind. Were you just selling and that's how you're making your money? Because ultimately you would end up digging swimming pools.
Yeah, well, Steve, after that bust, we lost everything. And the thing was, we owed a lot of money now. We owed a lot of money because what they did with it, they got rid of the stuff. When I say they got rid of it, I mean, they flushed it. They got it.
Oh,
as soon as they got a tip, it was gone. So we had nothing. So now we owe a lot of money, man. And we did everything we could, whether it was selling cars or anything. We were buying everything then. We were living the high life, Now all of a sudden, my brother started a swimming pool company. And next thing you know, that's my life just takes the turn for the worse. Now I'm digging swimming pools, but I'm still want to party, So I'm barely making enough money to even buy the stuff I need. And it was at that point, Steve, that my life really took another turn because I had a bunch of friends over my apartment. It was a Sunday afternoon, or it was a Saturday. I think it was a 6:05 wrestling show on TBN. I can't remember who it was, but there was two big guys. It looked like maybe the Road Warriors or someone like that, or Sid or somebody. And they were wrestling. And I said, and as I'm looking at this, I always remembered I was always a good athlete, and I still had a pretty good body, And I remember thinking to myself, I said out loud, I go, hey guys, I can do that. And but Steve, they busted out laughing. They go, Mark, are you crazy? Look at the size of them guys, man. I said, no, I'm serious. I can do that. And my buddy goes, Mark, you're 30 years old. What are you going to do? Start a pro career now? And I just said those two words, man. I said, I believe. And the next thing you know, I have to find out where there's a wrestling school. Okay, so I'm living in Venice, Florida then. And in Tampa, Boris Malenko, Gene and Jody's father, had a wrestling school there.
Yeah, but how'd you end up in Florida? Because you were in New York.
What happened was when I was in New York, things got really bad for us. We got into gambling too. Steve, it was I'm talking about a train wreck, Steve. This is a head-on collision at this point. We're getting involved with the gambling. We're losing money gambling, trying to make up for money we lost in the cocaine business. And now I go to New York because there's this company called Pacific Pools. My buddy was working for him, and he said, hey, Mark, I can get you a job out here, man. Live in Florida all year. And I thought, wow, that'd be great, man. I need to change my life, So I came to Florida, and that's when I was really obviously digging swimming pools. When I say digging, they have backhoe comes in digging. Right. You have to shape it with a shovel. Yeah. You know what I mean? You got to.
And not that there's anything wrong with doing swimming pools. It's just that when you have aspirations of buying your mom a house and being a millionaire, and you were living the high life, that's not so great.
It was not a goal I wrote down, man. Someday I'm gonna be the best swimming pool digger out there. So, anyways,
you go down to Malenko's training school.
So I started going to Malenko's training camp, and I remember, Steve, I got to tell you a funny story about that too. Was that I never took a bump if it said, just fold your hands and fall backwards on your back, or just slam yourself backwards. And Steve, I thought, okay, I was pretty easy going, no problem. Good athlete. I slammed my back so hard, Steve. I sounded like a seal from SeaWorld. I couldn't even breathe. I hit myself so hard. I was like, you can't catch your breath, I'm thinking, how do those guys do that, man? How do they get slammed like the way they do, But of course, you learn how to fall properly. But Malenko was a great coach, man, and week after week, I started going there. WCW used to have where you could drive down and they'd pick some of the enhancement guys to get beat up on television by the superstars, And you remember center stage, they used to have two dressing rooms, the superstars dressing room and kind of the what we called back then maybe jobbers or enhancement guys, And I was in the jobber dressing room. So the first time I go there, they chose me to wrestle. Steve, I've only had like a couple matches in my life. I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. The old saying, a wrist watch from a wrist lock. You know what I mean? So they put me against Doom, me and another guy, against Ron Simmons and Butch Reed, two of the best guys in the business, right? So they tell us what they're going to do. And their old finish was they put you up on the shoulders. And I think it was Butch Reed comes off the top rope and clotheslines you, and that was the finish. So they beat me 1, 2, 3. But I was thinking because it's television, it's taping, I got to get out of the ring real quick. So I roll out real quick, not knowing Butch Reed is furious. Now, customary for when the superstars would come back into the enhancement dressing room and come and just shake hands and thank you for putting them over in a good match, So I'm in the dressing room not thinking much about it. But I do remember that as I was kind of crawling out of the ring, I remember Butch Reed gave me this football kick that I'll never forget. I've never been kicked so hard in my life in the ribs, I thought it was part of the show. It's like, holy cow, that hurt, man. So I went back and I was kind of not hot, but just like, whoa, didn't know they kick you that hard. I thought it was like kind of, they take it easy on you or something. So I go in the dressing room and all of a sudden they come in. Butch Reed is furious. He comes in, you MFer, man, what the hell? You trying to make me look bad. I'm like, what are you talking about, And he just kept going off on me, get in my face. And then you switch modes because you can only take so much, And it was like, F you, We square off, Sid Vicious is there. he was in there thanking another guy or something. He steps between us and he was really nice to me. He goes, "Hey man, Butch, come on, this guy's okay, man." Because I looked, I said to him was hello before the matches in the hallway, like, "Wow, you're Sid Vicious, hello, He kind of took a liking to me, kind of protect me from getting my ass kicked that day, But anyways, so he said, "Next week you come, you're gonna wrestle me." And that was when Sid used to do the stretcher gimmick.
But what Hacksaw Butch Reed was trying to get across to you was, hey, man, when we give you that move, you lay there and sell. And the fact that you roll up so quick, that pissed him off. So he should come down there to give you the what for, you being so green to the business. When I had my first match, I got smartened up that day. So you didn't know, hey, man, I need to stay here and sell for this guy. And that's what pissed him off so bad, right?
Absolutely. He was completely right. I was wrong. And I'd say the next week, but let me share the story with you real quick, Steve, because this is where it gets good. So now I realize I'm never coming back here. Okay. This is it. Even though Sid said that, it's not up to Sid. It's up to the bookers who wrestles who, And they said, Dusty needs to see you in his office. I thought, oh, here we go. Here I am going to Dusty. Dusty Rhodes was a booker then. So I go into his office and I just started. I go, "Hey, Dusty, once I realized my mistake, I said, Dusty, first of all, I am so sorry about the match." He goes, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Kid, did anybody ever tell you look like Little Richard?" I go, and I got him meant a wrestler. I go, "Little Richard, isn't that the, I said, I don't know. I never heard of a wrestler named Little Richard." He goes, "No, Little Richard. A wop, baba, loo, baba, wop, bop, boo." And Steve, no one in my life ever told me I look like Little Richard. You know what I mean? And he just saw this gimmick on me that I never. So he goes, "I think I got a gimmick for you." And next thing I know, I'm thinking, Steve, the first thing I thought is, oh my gosh, I get to dress in the other dressing room. So here's where it gets good, Steve. Okay,
oh, God.
I got to be really candid about this. It might offend some people, but I'm saying this is back in the early 90s, okay? And this is just what happened. So don't hate me for it. So I'm down here in Florida. So I'm so excited. I get all my stuff packed. The next morning I go out to my Isuzu pickup truck, okay? And they repossessed it. I don't have a car to get to Atlanta. Mark Hildreth, remember Van Hammer?
Yeah.
He was down there and he goes, "I'll give you a ride, man." So he takes me down to Atlanta, 8-hour drive, I'm sitting in the CNN Tower. And his office is like next door to Ted Turner, you know what I mean? So you go up there and they put you in a waiting room and then they go, "Dusty, we'll see you now." So I go into his office and he's on the phone talking to somebody and he's really in a heavy conversation. And he goes, hold on. He goes, "Hey kid, here's the contract. Have your attorney look it over and get back to me." He gets back on the phone. Steve, I got this contract. So I'm standing in front of him still, and he's on the phone in a deep conversation. And I'm seeing the old WCW contract, 75 first year, 150 the second year, right? So I'm like, Steve, I go, "I'm an effing millionaire." You know what I mean? He's like, "I made it." So I wait till he looks up again. I go, "Excuse me, Mr. Rhodes." I go, "Do you mind if I just sign this? I don't even have an attorney." He goes, "Welcome to WCW." And so now, Steve, I am so excited, okay? I'm just like, my best friend in the world has always been my dad, Now, my dad worked my corner in boxing, went to all my hockey games. It was dad, those games and stuff, football games. So I cannot wait to call my dad. But now this is 1991, Steve. Now, let me remind you something, okay? Back then, if you made a collect phone call, the operator would get on. You go, "I'd like to make a collect call." And they go, who are you? And they say, you say your name, Marc Mero. They go, "Would you accept a call from Marc Mero?" And the person could either decline or accept. So now there's a couple of things you don't do, Steve. Now, my dad is an old school Jew, okay? You know the old saying, you don't tug on Superman's cape, you don't spit in the wind? Well, here's another one. You don't call a Jew collect, okay? You just don't do that. So my dad was very frugal, okay? So I make the phone call, and as soon as the operator says that, I said, "Dad, don't hang up." Okay, so he accepts the call, and I go, he goes, "Mark," my dad's from Brooklyn, New York, so he always called me Mark, He goes, "Mark, well, what's going on?" I go, "Dad, you're not going to believe this. I just signed a contract with WCW Wrestling." He goes, "Mark," "I always knew you're going to make it. Someday my boy's going to make it." He goes, "What do they got you doing?" I go, "Well, Dad, they got me doing this Little Richard gimmick." He goes, "Little Richard? Isn't that Schwarzer?" And I go, "Dad, but they're paying me like $100,000 a year." He goes, "Mark, I always liked that Little Richard." So Steve, now, I think you might remember this, okay? now my dad, now we do the first pay-per-view, okay? I'm doing this gimmick with PN News back then, okay?
I remember.
And they had salt and pepper there. It was a big deal. Right?
I remember.
So my dad was a detective. So all his friends are always police officers, you know. So my dad invites everybody over, he gets the pay-per-view, and he goes, my son Mark's going to be on the pay-per-view. Steve, now remember, all these cops used to come and watch me box. They saw me knocking people out, man, you know. All of a sudden that Tutti Frutti music starts playing. I come out, and my dad tells me the story later on. The whole room got quiet as I come out with that feather boa, walking all flamboyant, you know. And Steve, the first thing Dusty Rhodes has me say when I go to the microphone, I'm so pretty, I should have been born a little girl. And everyone's staring at my dad. My dad just goes, hey, at least he's making good money.
You pulled off the Johnny B. Bad thing so well. I always assumed you thought you looked like Little Richard. I didn't know that you didn't know who he was.
I've never heard that in my life. Obviously, once I did the thin mustache and they did my hair and the outfit and the talk and everything like that. Obviously, then I go, damn, I am Little Richard, you know.
It amazes me even more to know that you got so bad into drugs that your dad used to work with the police force.
Yeah, that was another hard thing, man. I got to tell you, we were estranged for many years, though, because of it, Steve. Many years he didn't talk. The Jews are very prideful people, you know, and when, you know, it's kind of hard because, you know, I became the prodigal son, man. I really screwed up. I hurt a lot of people, Steve, and that's all part of my testimony, what I share now. You know, I always tell them that your destiny is greater than your history, and don't base your limitations on your past and what you can do in your future. So, anyways, Johnny B. Bad becomes kind of a popular character there for a while, you know, and it's kind of flamboyant and everything. And Steve, I don't know if you remember this, and I know you're going to remember this. You got an amazing memory. When I listen to your podcast, how you can remember like venues and dates and pay-per-views on things. I'm going, damn, how does he remember all that? You know. But anyways, tuxedo match. Me and you're with Colonel Parker. We have to tear each other's clothes off. He left me standing there in front of millions of people with a Speedo on.
You know, I remember the tuxedo match, but who won? You did it.
Did I win that match?
You had to. I was working heel. You had to win.
Steve, I remember just standing in the ring with just my Speedo. I don't know if I won. I surely didn't win.
Let me put it this way: we both lost. When you're going out there, you know.
Dusty Rhodes won.
You know, I think WCW was running an 18-foot ring back then. So when you got two guys out there who are pretty good workers, and obviously the business is much more evolved now, but we were pretty decent workers. But when you're relegated to, you know, taking another man's tuxedo off, not the greatest angle in the world, right?
Oh, man, I tell you, it was actually, you know, a funny thing because I saw highlights of that not too long ago. It's always funny how everything's on social media now. So someone always has something that you did that you just go, oh my gosh. I don't, you know what's funny now, Steve, is because I present, you know, I do about 250 events a year. I've been doing it for 13 years now, you know. And the funny thing is that schools, because my name is Marc Mero, most people when they Google it, it just shows up WCW stuff. But every once in a while, a kid will come up and show me his phone, and it's me with like full-blown makeup with a feather boa on. He goes, hey, man, is this you? Like, oh, no, I never saw that guy before in my life.
Take me back to just as far as you getting into the business. And it's really amazing to imagine what would have happened back in that dressing room when Butch Reed MF'd you enough that you finally said, hey, let's go. And you're a 4-time Golden Gloves boxer, and he doesn't know that. And Butch Reed was a legitimate shoot guy, you know, a tough guy and old school. But, obviously he didn't know your skills. So, man, that would have been an interesting fight. But let's not speculate on that. What I want to ask you about is, once you got into the business, you started getting some season, started getting some of the greenness off. You started evolving into Johnny B. Bad. What did you think about the wrestling lifestyle? Because a lot of guys get led down a road they've never been introduced to, and that's in the form of painkillers, street drugs, or whatever. You'd been there, done that. So What I'm asking you, what were your thoughts about the business, how it worked, how it operated, and everything that goes with it?
Steve, one of the things I share in my testimonies when I speak is that I had 3 overdoses with drugs where it was really serious, where I was gone. One of them actually happened at WCW on the road. Touring, I obviously I don't share names or anything like that, never do. But I was on the road, and I got heavily into the party lifestyle. I mean, now all of a sudden bars are leaving the bars open all night for the boys. Drugs are rampant, and it wasn't. You remember back then there wasn't really much testing going on. You know what I mean? So you could do anything you wanted. And I started missing shows, Steve. I don't know if you know this or not. Started missing shows, and I remember getting called into Dusty Rhodes' office, and he said something I never forgot. He said, "Kid, I made you, and I can break you. You miss one more show, and you might as well just don't even show up ever again." And that was my real wake-up call, Steve, of not that I stopped partying. I just did not party like I did where I would miss a show. Because the old saying with, when you do coke all night and you're up, you go, "Oh, I'll get the next plane. I'll get the next plane." Yeah. Then there's one plane left. And if God forbid that plane got canceled and you're stuck and there's no way you can get to the event, then you make up some BS. You call Janie at the office. You make up some BS lie, "Oh, geez, my dog died," or something, some stupid thing, But that was a sad part of my life, And Steve, a lot of people don't notice that when I went to WWE, when you made the transition to go to WWE, and a bunch of us, even though I had a guaranteed contract waiting for me to keep going at WCW, and a good contract too, was you never really made it until you went to the dance, and the dance was WrestleMania, And I thought, man, if I look back on my career, I want to say I wrestled at WrestleMania. I made WWE because WCW was still not at that level, back then. And so I decided to do it. But Vince McMahon, I told him what I wanted, and he gave me exactly what I wanted. And I said, "Vince," I asked him for a big signing bonus. He gave me that. Everything. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to ask him to let my wife fly everywhere I fly. Now, Steve, not even thinking she's going to be my valet or anything. I didn't want to get divorced again. I wanted everybody in that business was either going through a breakup or divorce or whatever. And I thought, I just met this girl. I'm really in love. I want to make this thing work. So I said to Vince, "Vince, there's one more thing I want, and I'll sign the deal." He goes, "Gave you everything you want?" I go, "I need one more thing, and I'm signing the deal." And he goes, "What's that?" I go, "I want my wife to fly everywhere I fly." And he goes, "I have never heard that before." He goes, "Most guys are trying to get away from their wife." I go, "But Vince, but hear me out for a second. How about she's a really pretty girl? How about if we use her for my valet?" He goes, "Oh, let's just worry about you right now." All right? But he goes, I'll fly your wife everywhere you go." But he agreed to it, right? So he sends me a ticket to come to Stanford to sign my contract and talk about what the character is going to be and so forth. So he sends me a ticket. Remember, back then it was a paper tickets, I said, "Well, Vince, you sent just one ticket. My wife flies everywhere I fly." And he goes, "To sign a contract?" I go, "Vince, she goes everywhere I go." So sure enough, he sent the ticket for Rena, my ex-wife. And we fly in, and we walk into Vince's office. He sees her. He goes, "I got to put her on television." And that's how it started. And so he gave us a list of these names for her. And we came up with the name Sable. And that's how it was started. Said she would be my valet to walk me to the ring.
You know what really chaps my ass? Having to drive my carcass all over town to get all the supplies that I need for my shop. As a global icon and national treasure, there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to get everything I need without all this hassle. Well, my guys at Zorro.com are here to make it easy for me and you because they got everything you need in one place. Zorro.com, spelled Z-O-R-O, is where you'll find everything you need for businesses of any size and almost any industry. Electrical, plumbing, contracting, manufacturing. Don't sweat it because Zorro has you covered. Zorro.com has tools and equipment, safety and office supplies, cleaning gimmicks, and more brands you know and trust, such as Stanley, 3M, Milwaukee, Schneider, and Rubbermaid, just to name a few. Zorro.com offers amazing customer service from real people based in the U.S. And you'll dig the fast free shipment on orders of $50 or more. Just for listening to the Steve Austin Show, visit Zorro.com/Austin to sign up for Z-Mail and get 15% off your first order. Again, that's Zorro.com/Austin for 50% off your first order. Zorro.com/Austin. Get it all in one place.
Pro wrestling fans, listen up. WWE Hall of Famer and one of the greatest to ever step between the ropes, Jerry the King Lawler. And I don't think we'd have it any other way. Join the King and his co-host, Sean Reedy, as they get together to reflect on Jerry's legendary career from Memphis to the WWE to just about everywhere else.
Let me ask you one question. Who's the greatest wrestler in the world?
Download new episodes of The Jerry Lawler Show every Friday on Apple Podcasts and PodcastOne. And if you love the show, tell your friends and leave a rating and review.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
Let's talk quickly about your departure from WCW because, first of all, did you understand at the time when Dusty said, I can make you, I can break you? If you weren't a wrestling fan and you came on late to the party, Dusty was revered as one of the all-time greatest, damn near a god. Did you understand how much he meant to the business at the time?
Not like I do now, Steve. I mean, gosh, when I look at how honored I was that Dusty actually took a liking to me, cared about me. And when he said that day, I mean, I felt like my dad was talking to me, and it was my dad saying, dude, don't F up again. Yeah. Okay. This is your last shot. And and that's why I started cleaning myself up. And when I got married, I completely got off everything. And I really wanted to make it work. So when I was with WWE, I was not doing anything, Steve.
How did you get cleaned up?
Well, it was giving my life to God. It was like making that commitment. My ex and I were starting to go to church. I was speaking at churches and everything. I was really turning my life around, and I wanted to do the right thing. You remember when I first came in, it was like, even when I won the Intercontinental title, I was like, I'll dedicate this to my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, which didn't go over well with the office, but it was just my faith that was really strong. I really wanted to do the right thing in life. And I was really doing well. But as you know, Sable became very popular. It was very hard to build a career when the person that's walking in the ring is getting cheered more than you are.
But let's go back to the discussions with Vince McMahon when he calls you up because, man, he sees you as like, oh my God, this guy can be someone here in the WWE because, back when I was brought in and many others kind of like me, I was brought in as a mechanic by a fluke, winning King of the Ring, getting kicked by you. Triple H was supposed to win that King of the Ring, by the way. So anyway, things like that happened for me. And it turned out to be a good end, to a great career. But you're talking to Vince McMahon. You literally got one of, if not the first guaranteed contract in the history of the business. Yeah. You got your wife flown around with you all around the world. I mean, that's unheard of. And, to get anything like that with really, no leverage, do you realize how ahead of the curve you were?
Steve, as I look back now, obviously it was incredible, but see, I had a new 3-year deal coming up with WCW. And they gave me a great guaranteed contract there. So I knew I had some leverage. In other words, I still had a home, I didn't get into a big argument with Bischoff at that time yet, because it wasn't until I told him I was going to WWE that we got in a little argument. But it was, I had leverage, and as much as I wanted to go to WWE, knowing it would be I really wanted those three and the big signing bonus, which was kind of unheard of. Guaranteed contract didn't even happen, but to even get a signing bonus on top of that was just incredible. So it was amazing that happened, but that's what I wanted and I got it. And Vince even talked about putting on the strap on me right away. I mean, it was incredible but here's the thing that people don't understand. Vince thought that they would still be able to do some version of the Johnny B. Bad character. That's what he was interested in, So when we sit in the meeting and all of a sudden Vince realizes I can't do anything. This is when the lawsuits are going back and forth because everybody's stealing each other's wrestlers. And, it's a crazy time back then too. So Vince realizes, okay, we can't do anything with the Johnny B. Bad character. What are we going to do? And then we're sitting this meeting. The name went. They said, well, what about using your real name? And I said, Marc Mero is kind of a boring name. And I don't know how it came up. I don't remember exactly, but it was Wildman Marc Mero. And I said to Vince, I go, what is a wild man? He goes, well, can you do a Tarzan yell? I said, I don't got a very strong voice, Steve. I can't yell very good, And so I tried, but I just didn't have So anyways, like Ric Flair had the woo, I could not do the Tarzan yell. Okay. So they started doing drawings of this wild man, Marc Mero. And I was like, I mean, what am I, from the jungle? What am I? So I never really connected with what wild man Marc Mero was because I'm still doing the same moves Johnny B. Bad was doing and still kind of the same gimmick.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because as I go back to 96 as that King of the Ring, I wasn't wearing the black vest yet. I still had the slow music. I mean, I wasn't settled into the Stone Cold character yet. I'd come up with a name, but I was still evolving. And so, again, I would find myself and go on. But that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you is coming from Johnny B. Bad, is something you seem to be able to adopt and gravitate towards. But as the Wildman, to me, it never seemed like you were comfortable. The work was still the same. The work was good. You did a lot of athletic stuff. But just as far as that character, to me, it always seemed like you were searching.
Steve, you could have hit the nail better on the head than that because I was totally disconnected. Johnny B. was fun because it was so opposite me. You know, it was like playing a character, just coming out there like a nut, you know, having fun. But Wildman, Marc Mero, I just could not connect with. And, you know, and then they put the strap on me after winning the Intercontinental tournament. And so I thought, man, maybe this is my chance to really shine. And then they brought in the fake Razor, the fake Diesel, and we had terrible matches, and it just started declining. They took the strap. Triple H won his first title, beat me for the strap, and then it was shortly after that I really blew my knee out bad. You know, and remember the thing that I think pissed off a lot of people too was that here I am on a guaranteed contract. Guaranteed. So now I'm sitting home collecting the same money if I was busting my ass, and it did not sit well with a lot of people. And then they used Sable a lot of times to promote Austin 316 shirts. She'd come out and get a big pop, and you know she's selling your damn merchandise. So we got another royalty there. But you know, but she started getting really popular. And Steve, this is where it really took a turn. So they want to repackage me. We came up with the marvelous Marc Mero gimmick, play off of my boxing days, you know, and the whole thing of being jealous of Sable's popularity, which remember something, I'm totally on board with this. You know, me, her, and Vince Russo would have meeting after meeting on things we would do to get her over, you know, and it was really working well. Now here, Steve, the people say to me, well, you ruined your own career by allowing her to power bomb me and make me look like a fool, you know? But I got to be honest with you. If I could go back and change anything, I wouldn't, because all the paths I took in my life, Steve, had led to me right where I am right now. So I don't want to change anything. But I remember I didn't care. See, first of all, I had a huge guaranteed contract. You know, at that time, it was a lot of money. I mean, compared to what some of the guys are making now, it's, you know, nothing compared to some of the guys making now. But back then, it was a lot of money, you know?
Indeed.
So not only am I getting a guaranteed contract whether I work or not, and plus it's easy stuff doing just coming out there and yelling at her or doing silly matches, but she's now making great money because her merchandise is selling pretty good and she's doing really well, you know, and now all of a sudden all these offers come in from TV shows and other things outside. So Steve, I'm telling you, the Brinks truck was backing up to our house. So who am I to say, oh, I'm so worried about my career, I'm not going to do this, you know? Are you kidding me? The more we get her over, and you know, at that time, you think you'll be married forever. You know, we're always going to be together. So let's bring as much money in as possible. And then Steve, what happened? And gosh, I might have only shared this once or twice before. And I'm not trying to listen, we've never said a bad word about each other. You know, I don't go that route, you know, but the truth is what happened when Playboy came to, Vince said to me, he goes, hey, Mark, Playboy has a really strong offer to have your wife in their magazine. I said, oh, no, I could never do that, man. You know, I'm a Christian. I couldn't do that, Vince, you know? And so I remember, I don't know why she wasn't with me at the time, but she was doing something, other TV show or something. I can't remember. But when we came home together, I said, you're not going to believe this. I got to tell you something. Vince said to me that Playboy would like you to do their magazine. She was, really? And I go, yeah. And Steve, as God is my witness, I don't remember who said it because I'm not throwing her under the bus. It might even been me that said it. But I just remember we were sitting at our table, and I remember how stupid I am. And this is why I can be so honest with me now. Is that I look back at my life, what a jabroni. I think the word, if you look up jabroni, there's my picture right next to it, okay? I said, or she said, I can't remember, was, let's just do it. God will forgive us, okay? So anyways, so they're not only offering her this huge sum of money, but they're offering her a quarter an issue over their normal sale. So let's say Playboy sold, I don't know what it was, like say 500,000 copies a month, you know, for their magazine. And if she did a million copies over, that's another $250,000, right? It becomes the fastest selling in Playboy history. So what do? they call me back because now we're hooked in with Hugh Hefner. We're going to the Playboy parties. We're at the mansion, the Halloween extravaganza, Midsummer Night's Dream. We're watching movies at Hef's house. It's like we're part of their team. So he calls me. He doesn't call WWE. He calls me. He goes, we want to do it again. So I say, well, I want 7 figures plus a quarter issue of their normal sales, right? They give it to us. Steve, I don't know if you know this or not, but she did that 4 times. She did that 4 times. So now she's really raking it in with that. And God, I was happy for her, but our marriage starts tanking now, See, God does forgive you, but there's consequences. There's consequences to sin, okay? And, oh, man, did I find them out the hard way, So make a long story short, she leaves WWE over a lawsuit. I don't know if you remember this or not.
Yeah.
There's a lawsuit with her in the WWE. And I left my guaranteed contract. I had 3 more. I just signed a new contract. I had 3 years left on my guaranteed contract. I walked away, said, forget it. I don't want to do this no more. We had enough money to live the rest of our lives on, or at least I thought. Okay.
But why did you not want to do it anymore?
Oh, gosh, Steve. At that time, we were so vilified. It was like we couldn't walk into the lunchroom without somebody making a comment or, God, Steve, I look back on that part of my life as the saddest part of my life, that because of what was going on with her and the company, and we were just hated, and I knew it, and I had no friends there, and because the thing was, I always traveled with her. So I wasn't the camaraderie. WCW, I was hanging out with the boys and doing stuff, going to parties or going out and having a beer after or something. But now I'm just with my ex, we'd go to bed early, watch, get up and go on the road. I had no camaraderie with nobody. There was no one close to me. I didn't have no friends really. But then when that lawsuit happened, I got real bad, And, the story that goes, come back from England, they put poop in her bag, and it was one thing after another, and it was like that final straw was like, who needs this in our life? We got enough money to live the rest of our lives on. Let's just go. She wanted to get into Hollywood and do acting and things like that. So we went and rented a brand new townhouse in Studio City, California. We rented it for 1 year. So I sent her to California to get into some movies. She did some movies and stuff. And I stayed home with our daughter, and I would take care of Mariah while she was trying to get into movies. And it didn't go real well, not like she was hoping. And because we couldn't use the name Sable no more. So it's now Marc Mero. And, it didn't go well. So I'll never forget this. She calls me up and she says, hey, Mark, what do you think if I go back to wrestling? And Steve, God is my witness, I was dumbfounded. I go, are you crazy? First of all, they hate you. Vince would never have you back. Are you crazy? And she goes, I already talked to him, and he said he'll think about it. Are you kidding me? And that's how it all started. She had to go and apologize to some of the big stars of the company at the time, mention names, but she went and she did the right thing. She went back and she apologized and got Sable back. And now I'm home watching the kid and taking her to school and doing all the stuff a dad does. And she's on the road. And, every night we had this thing where we would say goodnight. My daughter and I would say goodnight to her and stuff, and I remember that the phone calls started getting less and less. She was tired. She wasn't around as much. And Steven, and I was thinking, something's going on, man. It's just ain't right. It was like we were really close too. And then our marriage just started tanking. Right after that Playboy thing, it just started going downhill, Phone calls got less and less. And I'm going to tell you, and I make light of this because Stephen, when I tell you, the greatest thing in life is forgiveness. There's nothing more that frees you from any bitterness, resentment, or anger in life than forgiveness. And I have nothing against anyone that's ever wronged me. I just don't. I won't live like that, But I will share this story because it is kind of funny. I shared it once with Jim Ross one time. I remember thinking, something's going on. She's got to be seeing someone, So I remember she didn't answer the phone one night. So I left. I really cut this promo on her cell phone, and I was like, why? How could you do this? Not answer your phone? We in agreement. We talk at night, blah, blah. I hung up the phone. I thought, what a jackass I am. Why would I do that? She's out there trying to earn a living. She's out there doing something she loves. So I figured I'd call back her phone. And I knew her password because we were that close. We knew all each other's passwords and stuff. So I thought, let me delete this before she hears it, right? So I call back her number and punch in her code, and it says, you have 2 unheard messages. And I thought, okay, so I have to listen to the first one to get to mine. And it was another wrestler talking about them too. And I was like, oh my God. Steve, I tell you, we've all been in this position before where your heart is broken. You can't sleep. You start sweating. You're like crazy. And I remember thinking, man, when I find out who this guy is, I am going to kick the living tar out of this man. And then I found out it was Brock Lesnar. Steve, this gives forgiveness a whole new meaning. So the marriage was over. We ended up getting divorced, and God bless them. They got married. They got kids. They live a happy life, and kudos, man. And, when I end up getting remarried again, divorced again, and, but I'm living the most amazing life. I do exactly what I love doing in life. I get to inspire and empower so many people every single day, and not only change lives, but save lives. We get so many kids that were suicidal, or parents or people that have reached out to me that said that I changed or saved their life. So I cannot be in a better spot, and I only hope and pray that they are happier than I am. So that's the way. And, Steve, before you ask the next question, the one thing I want to say is that forgiveness is so important, but some of the hardest people to forgive is ourselves, man. Either you forgive or you relive. And if you ever make that choice, please forgive yourselves for past wrongdoings.
When was it that you decided, hey, man, let me go out on the road and share my life story with people and see if I can, help them in any kind of spot they are and change lives? Because, man, the story of you being overseas in Japan and your mother passed away from lung cancer, your dad passing away, your brother, your sister, getting on drugs, your brother being incarcerated. And you're just in this shitstorm, and then you almost committed suicide.
Yeah.
So when was it you decided, hey, man, let me see if I can change lives?
Well, let me just go back a little bit, Steve. After the divorce was one of the hardest times of my life. I mean, I when you're in love and you think you're going to be with the person the rest of your life, so we split up everything evenly, and all we had left was a house to sell, and I wasn't making enough money at the time. But Steve, I made a huge error in my life. Was I not only got into gambling, but I got into day trading. Now, I still had a lot of money that time, but I got into day trading, which is just like gambling. You're in front of that computer all day long buying and selling stocks, Steve, I lost $1.6 million, okay? So now I'm back to zero, right? I remember I was down to my last $200,000. That's all I had left to my name. Now, when I say I got broke, when you have $5 million, all of a sudden you're broke. That's like, how do you live the rest of your life on $200,000? It's impossible, So what do? I become a personal trainer at Gold's Gym. Now, here, Steve, you go from being, a WWE superstar to people coming in Gold's Gym and go, what are you doing here? I go, well, I'm a trainer. They go, you train people? And I go, yeah, man, it's like my passion, that's what I do, But here's the cool thing about it. I really started changing people's lives. Like, people were getting great shape, and now I got a full schedule of training, and I decided to open my own gym, personal training studio, and it went really well. We had 4 trainers under me. We were making good money at this little gym we got. And so I'm back on track to doing okay in life. I couldn't live a high life like I once lived, At that time, Melbourne High School had a pretty good football team. And they said, hey, Mark, you want to come in? And at that time, I was doing all the different shows because I was talking about the experience I had in WWE wrestling, about the steroid abuse, the drugs, the guys that were dying. At that time, guys were passing out all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was bad. We went through a bad time, Steve. And I want to just say something quickly about that too, because a lot of people maybe don't understand my heart at that time was that it wasn't me pointing my finger at anybody else. I was sharing what I was able to get away with and do. And it almost killed me myself, but we lost a lot of our friends, a lot of our good friends too. When I spoke out against that, I really wanted to make a difference. And, Steve, I look now at they got some of the tougher drug testing than ever. They have Olympic drug testing at WWE. We very seldom see someone die of a drug overdose. And the coolest thing that happened, Steve, is that anybody that ever wrestled for WWE wrestling, WWF, WWF, can go to drug rehab for free. So we think about how the changes that were implemented, maybe I had a small part in that. I don't even know, but I know some of us did stick up. So would I go back and change anything? No, I wouldn't change a thing, Steve. I'm blessed that you got to be proud of who's looking back at you in the mirror every single day, But what would have been so cool is now that I got the #1 school program in the whole country, how cool would it have been if WWE said, hey, let's take one of our former WWE superstars and let's get on board with what he's doing and let's work together to change and save lives. Because, if you take a WWE wrestler now and just put him on stage, the kids are just going to freak out. It's not like they're really listening to a story. And many of them don't have the stories that we've had over those years from the years and years on the road, So anyways, Melbourne football calls me up and says, we talk to the boys about, because a lot of guys were getting the steroids and talk about the dangers of drugs and things. So I went and spoke to them, and it went kind of cool. And I go, that was kind of fun doing that. Well, they told another school about it. They go, hey, we had Marc Mero's right here in town, or, a couple hours away, and he'll come and speak to your school. And we went and did it again. And then I started sharing my story. But then one day, Steve, I decided to put together videos and pictures of my upbringing, and tell my whole story, my roller coaster of life. And next thing you know, man, it just started changing people's lives and saving people's lives. And then I was doing schools in Atlanta, and I was staying with DDP, and he goes, hey, bro, you mind because DD's got the big yoga studio now, the performance center there. So he goes, hey, you want the guys come film your presentation? I said, sure. They come and film it with like 2 or 3 camera shoot. And a few days later, Dales calls me up. He goes, hey, bro, the guys put together this really cool video from your presentation. He goes, you mind if we put it up on YouTube? I said, sure, go ahead, man. So he put it up on YouTube, and he calls me back like a week later. He goes, hey, bro, check this out, man. It's got like 200,000 views or something. I go, you're kidding me. More companies have used that video. There's one called The Greek Kangaroo out of Australia. They have 112 million views on alone. So what we did, we decided to type in the name Mother's Love and start adding up all the video views. It's over 500 million now, so it's absolutely incredible. But what happened was cool for me, and this is where I probably owe DDP royalty money, like you owe me, was that we got 3,000 booking requests the first month. 3,000. So now I'm going all over the world. Steve, I even went to Russia and spoke at schools in Russia.
Wow.
We went to Guatemala just a few months ago. We're getting ready to go to do a UK tour. It has just exploded to doing something I love doing. But every day we get at least every school I go to, we get at least 100 private messages on how the presentation changed their life, or the ones that it said it saved their life, or kids that are so many kids self-harming or suicidal today. We went to some schools, Steve, that got 6 and 7 suicides now. It's just tragic what's happening in our kids today.
Man, how do you go about booking all that with being in demand so much? Because you're making, 250 dates a year?
I have a whole team, Steve. We have 4 employees. We have one girl that does all my scheduling and my booking. That's her full-time job. Then we have our tech guy who travels all over with me, because he puts together, every school has different technical aspects that he's just gifted at. And he runs my presentation. As I'm talking, he knows exactly where to go to, and it's a roller coaster, so it's constantly engaging students. We have another employee that does all our books and things like that. And, but I still am very hands-on with travel and things like that, because no one knows my schedule like me. And in booking, where you go, why did they get me on the earlier flight? Like I got to sit here in the airport for 6 hours. So I do all my own my airfare and stuff like that. But we have a great team, man. We're a really committed team that really makes a difference. And remember, Steve, every school you go to, they have the sound releases. There's, you have to be background. Everybody wants to be a speaker. They go, hey, Mark, can I be a speaker? People have no idea about the background checks, and every school has to sign waivers, and there's liability. There's so much involved with going to a school and talking. Steve, as you know, with the school shootings and things like that now, it's like some of these schools are like Fort Knox to get into it, man. You got to be buzzed in, and you have to show them your driver's license. They do a check on you, and everything's got to be copacetic before you do a school.
Hey, man, and your travels in the last few years, there's some takeaways that you've noticed at some of the schools that you've been to, just in talking to the kids, or what's not, I don't know how to word this. What do they need, or what are they not getting?
Well, Steve, I got to tell you, for 13 years, I've had my finger on the pulse, because I read all these letters. I mean, when I'm on a plane, I will answer almost every kid that's going through adversity, I will send them a private message. And I tell you something, it's probably the coolest thing to do is that when a kid feels like somebody cares or they feel like they matter, it could change every dynamic about it. But Steve, over the 13 years where I've really seen suicide become a major factor among young people today, the self-harm, cutting, the depression, the anxiety that kids have today. Steve, what's really strange is, I'm a little bit older than you, but we were the same era growing up, And when we were in school, I didn't know anybody cutting themselves. I didn't know anybody that wanted to kill themselves. I didn't even know anybody on medication. It's hard to find a kid today that doesn't know someone that either took their life or has been self-harming or is on Adderall or Xanax or something, and that's a real problem. But here's what I want to say, Steve, about your question was, what do you think's going on? We could talk about depression, bullying, suicide all day long. But Steve, what's happening in our country and happening around the world, I'm watching more grandparents raise kids today that the mom or dad have already checked out of. Or most kids are coming from single families, and parents are so busy trying to make a living that they can't make a life. And it's at the expense of our next generation. And Steve, I'll tell you, our smartphone has outsmarted us, man. I got to tell you, because these kids share everything with me. The first time I saw, when I can't remember his name, but I think it was DeBerg, he got beheaded in the Iraq thing, years ago.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that video. I don't know how I saw it, but Steve, I was ill. I was literally just beside myself, seeing something so horrific that I couldn't get out of my head. When you start seeing stuff like that at 8 or 9 years old, it's nothing but a video game. They can watch people getting blown away, killed, knifed. It doesn't even seem to bother. They're so desensitized to violence. Now, on top of that, the pornography these kids are seeing at such a young age in elementary or middle school, that are growing up with these visions of what is love? Is that how you treat somebody? And it really is, it's very disturbing to me because I'm seeing more and more of the as we look at our kids. Why do we got so many kids depressed? Why do we got so many kids killing themselves? Why does the anxiety, why does all these parents putting their kids on medication? Who knows what the long-term effect of medication? It's one thing after another, Steve, and you say, well, how does it get better? Steve, I've been doing 13 years. It's not getting better, okay? It's getting worse. And I might say something. With that said, the darker it gets, the brighter we got to shine, man. We just got to keep going. The old starfish analogy, kid walking on the beach, throws a starfish in, and the guy goes, man, there's starfish all over the beach. What do you do, save them all? And he picks one up, he throws it, he goes, I just saved that one. And that's the way I look at it, Steve. I can't save them all, but you know what? Every day I'm going to go out there and change or save somebody's life.
You seem like you're in a really good place right now, and you've been through so much.
Well, Steve, this summer was probably one of the toughest summers of my life, and I don't know if you know this or not, but I was divorced in July. 2 weeks later, one of my best friends in the world, in fact, I've been getting these tats now, and he's the guy, one of my best friends doing all these tats. I finally, at 58 years old, decided to get tattoos, And so midlife crisis, I don't know what you want to call it. But anyways, doing that. And then one of my best friends, one of the guys I talk about all the time, 35 years, and we got a picture here called Friends for Life. He just passed away. He's my age. And my brother-in-law just passed away. It's 61, cancer. And then I lost one of the guys that works for our company. He's a volunteer for our company. His name is Gray Hudson. He just passed away at 61 also. So I lost, in just 2 months, I lost 5 of the closest people in my life on top of my divorce. So it's been a rough summer, but my therapy is getting right back on that stage. I mean, the worst thing to do is sit there and mourn, because you can only mourn for so long, man, before you got to get back out there. And being from Texas, you got to get back on the horse, man. And I had to do that. And my joy comes from helping others, man. I said, if you ever want to be happy, help someone else become happy, man. You want to be successful, help someone else become successful. Hey, Steve, there's one thing I want to share with you that I attribute a lot of my success to. And believe it or not, this is what's crazy. You're a big part of this. And I told this to Dallas Page. He's the only one I ever shared this with, was when you used to wrestle WCW, you were one of the guys, you used to watch all the matches at the curtain. You used to always go there. You had your little cup there. I can picture you doing it, your tobacco and you're watching those matches, and you watch match after match. Steve, I couldn't wait to get done to get out of there, man. I just didn't, I never got it, right? And I said, man, he watches every match. And it was like, you were just like, you learned everybody's moves. You knew, like, if I'm doing a flying head scissor with you or doing a hurricane off the top rope, you knew everybody's moves. And it propelled you into the position you eventually got to, being such a great worker. When I left wrestling, I always had regrets. My regret was, when I say regrets, I have no regrets now. When I look back, when I think about things, I used to say, why didn't I work harder? Why didn't I become a better wrestler? Why didn't I work more on my character? Or they gave me not the best character in the world, but why didn't I work harder on it or try to make something of it? And I always thought back on all the times I watched you watch another match. And it developed you into one of the finest workers out there. And when people say, well, it was an overnight success. No. Yours was a 14-year overnight success that happened to you, man. It was work ethic multiplied millions, So when I became an inspirational speaker, I said, I want to be the guy at the curtain. And I started watching the best in the world. I watched, why is this guy so good? And I learned how to share from my heart. And when I shared from my heart, I had the audience in the palm of my hands. I had the whole place crying. I had them laughing. And I learned that by saying, I want to have that work ethic. I'm not going to let another time go by and go, man, I did all right at speaking, but man, why didn't I try harder? Man, no one outworked me. And now I don't even know be doing as many presentations I do a year consistently for 13 years, on average of 250 a year. We had one year I did almost 300, 293. I said, I'm never doing that many again, because it does take its toll on you. What's not hard is not the presentations that's hard. It's the 100 or 200 letters after that you read that break your heart. That now you got to figure out, how do I get this kid into rehab? How did I help this kid from being bullied at school? And the suicide of the parents that reach out to you, that they lost their kid to suicide. You don't just, when they call you, you don't just say, okay, well, I got to go. You got to listen to their story. They're pouring for their heart out to you, man. So it's been an incredible journey. So I thank you for that. I guess I owe you royalty, so we'll call it even, okay?
Let's call it even. But yeah, man, I did watch all the matches, and it's interesting that you watched all the top people that are, out there kind of maybe not doing exactly what you're doing, but out there trying to convey a message, and that you studied them. And because when I watched, I guess it was the Riverview, it was a church presentation. I know you were around all high schools, but I was like, wow, Mark could cut a promo, but this is an amazing speech. Big difference. I know they're two different things, but one leads to the other. And I was like, you kind of answered my question that I didn't ask, but I was like, how did you get so good at this? Because in that little 5-minute video, the, Mark's emotional Mother's Day story, and then I watched, the whole, Riverview presentation that was an hour long, and it was full of, and I mentioned it at the open of the show. Man, I was on such a ride. I was like, I can't believe this guy's life. Then the way you tell the story, I mean, and it's a true story, but, and just in that 5-minute video, it's like so powerful. And it's just, I don't know, I guess there's an art to it. And yours is an authentic message as well. But congratulations on all your success. But more importantly, thank you for helping all the people that you've helped, because, I've get a couple of stray emails every here and there for, Stone Cold. Maybe I inspired somebody who was bullied in high school, and that's cool. But you're going around, reaching thousands and thousands and thousands of kids. So, man, props to you for everything that you've been through, and, turning around and paying it back, and, affecting people's lives and helping kids.
We were just in Texas last Thursday, and I did something really cool. Was they bust 18 schools into the Sam's Auto Arena in Laredo, Texas. I did 8,000 students in one presentation, and to be in there in an arena, and sharing on those big screens, and it was just incredible, Steve. And it was like, so when you get there, you go, wow, I started off speaking to a football team, and now I'm in an arena speaking, So, man, I got to tell you, when I talk to people about going after dreams and goals in life, we often become our worst critic. We listen to so much negativity in our head, Stephen. And the other part is that we surround ourselves with a lot of negative people. And those are the people who tell you why you can't do something, why you're not qualified, why you're not big enough or strong enough. But you know what? The reason why people tell you you can't do it is because they can't do it. So don't ever give up on dreams and goals. So anyone listening out there, man, you might have something lies dormant in your heart, or, when we get older, we say things like this, Steve. We say, those were the days. And I'm here to tell you, no, these are the days. These are the days we learn from past mistakes. We grow in grace and knowledge, and we can accomplish anything we set our mind to. Gosh, you want to write a book? You want to start a business? Don't let people drag you down. Don't base your limitations on what other people think and say.
Hey, you've done this thousands of times, but when you go into, say, Laredo, Texas, and you've got 8,000 faces in front of you, are you ever reading the crowd? I mean, you have some tough kids over here in the corner. Hey, am I going to be able to reach them?
Absolutely.
What are you thinking?
Yes, absolutely. Here's the coolest thing. The guy I travel with is so good at following me because I could change my presentation. I've done so many. I got so many different stories. We spoke at a school in Philadelphia, and in fact, they told me that the corner of this school has more mortalities from heroin overdose. There's a lot of homeless people. It's a really bad area. But to get into school, you got to go through metal detectors. And so I knew it wasn't your typical crowd, you know. So when I come out, I change it up a little bit, but I can flow now. I really read a crowd well. And when you're in front of some really tough kids, now I also speak at prisons, so that's really helped me too. So when you're in front of that tough crowd, and the coolest thing is, I spoke at a Brevard Correctional Facility not too long ago, and they did something they'd never done before. Was they brought all the men in who had to sit in the first 10 or 15 rows, and then they had a bunch of rows. Then they had all the women from the prison, and the men weren't allowed to turn around. They had like guards everywhere, you know. It was so cool, Steve, because I was able to draw on my past mistakes and my drug abuse. But the stories that really touched their hearts was, you know, losing my father. My dad died in my arms, you know, and my little brother and sister died at 21, you know. My mom died at 58. And then, of course, all the friends that we've lost in our business, you know. So I share these stories, but the personal stories about my family, I have never seen, you know, more tough guys, so to speak, you know, in tears or had their heads, you know, on their lap, just crying, man. It was really powerful. So I'm able to reach people at a different heartfelt level. And I always say, if you touch the heart, man, you can change their mind. So when these guys get out, give them hope. Don't let them go back to doing the same thing they did before. It's, you know, the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing, expecting different results. Let's see them make a difference in their life.
Hey, man, it's been so cool to catch back up with you after all of these years. What an amazing life. And I've recommended, once again, in the open of the show, I've given people a few videos to watch so they get the whole story. Not just the brass tacks of what we've touched upon today, but how can people find you on social media, Facebook, website, or whatever to get in touch with you?
Let's see, Instagram and Twitter is just my name, Marc Mero, MarcMero. YouTube, you just type in my name. We have our own YouTube channel, a lot of inspirational videos. And of course, on Facebook, it's Marc Mero page. So you can go to see that.
What's next for you?
You know, Steve, I if someone told me I'd be speaking to kids at 59 years old, I'd say you are absolutely crazy. So I will continue to do this, Steve. And, you know, as long as I have the energy, I keep in really good shape. I eat really good. I've been 16 years drug-free. So I have a lot of energy. I love what I do. I've never missed a show. In 13 years, never missed a show, you know. So I'm what that talk Dusty Rhodes gave me years ago really paid off, you know. So I just want to continue to, you know, Steve, it's about leaving a legacy in life. You know, we're all going to die. And I tell people, you know, you can Google it. We're going to die. Okay. But my legacy, it's never going to be how much money I had or how many homes I had or cars or whatever. My legacy is going to be the difference I made in somebody else's life. And that's what I just hope continues. You know, I say, invest in who's going to cry at your funeral. Surround yourself with good people, man.
Hey, man, it was great talking with you.
Oh, Steve, thank you so much, man. And God bless you. And congratulations on your show, man, and all the things you're doing. It's awesome.
All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast and ride off in the sunset. Before I do that, I want to thank my guest, Marc Mero, for being on the show today. And apologies for the Skype connection. It was not the greatest. Don't forget to rate and review the Steve Austin Show on Apple Podcasts. Tell your friends to check us out. If you want to reach me here on the podcast, or if you watch one of those videos I told you to watch about during the show, send me an email to questions@steveaustinshow.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hey, I got a badass beer, and it's reaching the East Coast, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York. Happy to be there. Broken Skull IPA, the best IPA in America, is finally out on the East Coast from El Segundo Brewing Company. You can find it at Whole Foods and Total Wines if you live in California. If not, check out elsegundobrewing.com. Hey, don't forget, the King of Attitude shirts is still available at Pro Wrestling Tees store. ProWrestlingTees.com/Steve Austin for all those shirts, along with my Broken Skull Ranch apparel. I'd like to say one more thank you to all the fine sponsors of the Steve Austin Show, especially Roman, WWE 2K20, Zorro.com, Geico, and betonline.ag. That's how I'm able to do this podcast for you twice a week for free. Please support them because they support us. If you need more info on my sponsors, check out the show description of this episode for details. Folks, I'm about to gas up my new Kawasaki KRX 1000 and go ride the trails. Until next time, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
This has been a PodcastOne production. Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.